Hi, everybody. This is Ryan Tantalo with the Puerto Rico Ice Hockey Media and Brand Committee. Thank you for tuning into our YouTube channel. In this video, I had the opportunity to interview Scott Vargas, the president and founder of the Puerto Rico Ice Hockey Association, and we discussed one of the upcoming events new in 2023. The Serie de Desafiadores, or Challenger Series, will begin in Orlando February 17th, 18th, and 19th at the Amway Center and the Central Florida Ice Factory. The Puerto Rican men's national team will take on two local hockey clubs in that region in Central Florida, and ticket packages can be bought that include Friday and Sunday tickets for Puerto Rico and the Orlando Solar Bears, one of the partners for this event. Puerto Rico Ice Hockey also partnered with the Florida Puerto Rican Parade, which takes place in downtown Orlando a few months after the event itself in February. For more information about scheduling and ticket packages, please visit PuertoRicoIceHockey.com, and we hope to see you in Orlando later this month. Before we get into the details, I would just like to ask where the name Challenger Series or Serie de Desafiador came about.
Yeah, so we wanted to use Serie de Desafiadores, to again, start to integrate the Spanish language and to some of our event types. I think that's critical to the culture. It's critical to kind of what we're trying to accomplish. And really connecting both the diaspora community within the contiguous U.S. states and then Puerto Rico as well. Because we have a deep fan base now and both, right? And when I say deep, it's certainly still in the grander scheme of things, a small fan base, but it's a rapidly growing fan base. It really, we just looked at some of the formats that are out there today. And you think about, for example, on the women's side, US and Canada have their rivalry series. We wanted to kind of replicate something similar to that, but not with a specific nation in mind. More of an opportunity for us to engage a particular community in which we're trying to connect with and host an exhibition series in that city, right? So in this case, we could invite, for example, in Orlando, the best athletes in Central Florida who are kind of outside of the professional level or former pro athletes or, former NCAA or college athletes, right? We could invite that kind of group and compete against them with the goal of playing a higher level competition each time. We're trying to level up competition, or, we could invite a team from, elsewhere and bring them into that city and we could compete again. And that's kind of what we're looking to do later in the year. But it gives us some flexibility. We're looking to find a challenger or challengers to really raise our level of competition and give us an opportunity to not only compete and elevate that level of compete, but also engage, in that community in which this really is a bit of a road show in a sense, where we're trying to take our national teams on the road and display that on ice product in front of those, fan bases that we're building. Actually, the Solar Bears are a partner. So really the strategy that we have is, we're partnering with professional ice hockey franchises and the respective diaspora communities that we, have the most interest in. And that interest is very simple. Where are the communities in which there are the most Puerto Ricans? So if you think about that, you have New York City, you have Orlando, which people now really refer to as the second Puerto Rico. Then you have Philadelphia, you have Boston or the greater Boston area, right? You've got Hartford and you have Chicago. Those would be like the top six. And in this case, the Solar Bears are that partner in Orlando. And, the Solar Bears also want to connect with that community. So we've partnered with them. They have a very solid, robust, established infrastructure in Orlando from a hockey perspective. And then we also went out and partnered with a local Puerto Rican community group, in this case, the Florida Puerto Rican Parade, which has 20,000 attendees each year at that annual parade. And we've kind of connected both those groups, in which it's a three-way partnership. And for Orlando, the competitor, there's two of them. There's the Goodwin Firm Bulls, and then there is another team, that is a local kind of travel ice hockey club in the area. And those two teams are made up of, again, former professional athletes, former NCAA athletes, former college athletes, right? Players who played at a high level. Right now, they might be in their, careers, similar to myself. They're working a different career, but still have a passion for hockey, still are on the ice, still are athletic, still competitive. And that's the kind of team that we were looking for this first one. Again, down the road, perhaps that's a more established team, maybe another national team that we bring into one of these cities.
Mm-hmm. So for the Puerto Rican Ice Hockey Association, who is traveling down as players and volunteers in order to represent the association?
Yeah, it's a great question. So for this particular one, the first one, since it was in February, we had to look at which team would be most likely based on some of the demographic information, like really age is what it comes down to really provide a team in February. The Orlando Solar Bears wanted us to come down at this weekend. They have an event, Latina Noche, that they had already been planning. That was a connection point into the Latino community in Orlando. And the men's national team, we've got a much larger base of players who have, again, exited their professional career or college career for hockey, and they're, able to have that flexible schedule to travel down. With that being said, we did have to cross-reference schedules for those players that are active, right? The ones that are maybe pre-evaluated as top athletes within the men's national program. A lot of those players do have games that weekend. If they're playing junior hockey, if they're playing AAA hockey, if they're playing college hockey, or if they're playing professionally actively right now, and we have a few of those players. And that leaves the remaining group, of which we went through. We sent initially invites to the team that competed in the LATAM Cup last fall and won the LATAM Cup championship, and then went down the list, inviting some other players. And we came up with a pretty solid squad, which is in this case, our men's national team. And the great part is there are some players that are going to have the opportunity to represent Puerto Rico at that level for the first time ever. And I think they understand and respect the fact that, it's not something that's guaranteed. It's certainly, an honor, a privilege to have that opportunity. Even in this first, exhibition series for 3 games.
And in the most recent newsletter for the 2023 goals and focus areas for the association, one of the biggest things that you mentioned, the first goal, was growth. So how does this event, not only in Orlando, but the subsequent Challenger Series events and games, how do they fit into that goal of growth and growing your membership?
Yeah, I love that question. So, Serie de Desafiadores, again, it's really built to allow us to connect into each of these local communities. And, if you think about, our association and how widespread it is, we are now, I've got to run the numbers again. I believe 26 states, Puerto Rico, and DC. That's where our membership is located. It's very widespread. So we have a large footprint in that sense. And, again, these communities I mentioned, the 6 cities within the contiguous U.S. states that have the largest Puerto Rican populations, that is our best opportunity to create a kind of consistent footprint where, maybe we don't have a massive membership today. Maybe it's 25 members, maybe it's 15 members, in that city. But what does it mean for us to have an engagement like this in Orlando? Have some established members there, right? That can volunteer and take part. Grow our fan base, grow awareness of the association in general, right? Provide an entertaining event in which other Puerto Ricans or even Latinos, for that matter, get to come out to the event, and kind of really have a great time. at an ice hockey game. And our hope is that that game is, yeah, sure, it's going to be in a very skilled ice hockey game, but also we're looking for that atmosphere where, as I've described it, most people simply say like, oh, like soccer, like, oh, like football. It's very loud during the play. A lot of like drums and kind of sound and chants and everything. I think that's something that people will remember. And the hope is that as they remember that and they have an opportunity maybe to get on the ice, that perhaps they join in and they become part of that network, that PRIHA community in that local area of Orlando. And we get to grow that, in a sense, chapter, right? The goal is really to create that kind of chapter footprint and then raise awareness, and grow our fan base, right? Where people are, constantly looking into, okay, how's the Ice Hockey Association doing? How's the national team doing? Hey, we saw the men. When are the women coming? We want the women to come. We want to see that game, right? That's the kind of excitement that we're looking to build. And, I think so far, based on what we've heard and the feedback we've received, we're on the right path there.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned kind of that involvement and that excitement from the fan perspective, right? Like people in the community who maybe haven't really been to a hockey game or experienced it, at least not in that sense of cheering for their own nation. And how does the Puerto Rican parade that coincides with this event play into that?
Yeah, that's a awesome question as well. So again, the strategy was to find not just the professional, sports franchise that had that infrastructure built, but also the Puerto Rican community group. And when we're looking for that Puerto Rican community group, the question is, what is their network? What's their infrastructure? What value can we bring them? And for the Puerto Rican, or the Florida Puerto Rican parade, rather, the value we could bring them is one, an activation point along the kind of path leading up to the parade event. So if you think about it, we're going to have this event in February. Their parade is 2 months later. So it really is a perfect activation point to get the community really excited and hyped up. We've integrated some opportunities for them to engage those that arrive at the event to say, hey, like, don't forget the parade's coming up in 2 months. We want to see you there. We want to see you as part of it. It's going to be a fun time. It's going to be, an entertaining time, a way for us to connect as a community. And, with that, we hope that brings some value back. Now, it doesn't stop there. Since we are, partnered with the Solar Bears, and the kind of ticket packages actually match up where not only do people get to come to our game, they get to also go to the Solar Bear game, right? So we're going to have that same communication go through the Solar Bears game. And perhaps, it could even be individuals that aren't Puerto Rican. They hear about the Florida Puerto Rican parade and they might want to be a part of it, because guess what? They probably know it's going to be a fun atmosphere, right? There's going to be, singing and dancing, great food, right? So that's the value kind of that we're bringing back to them. And that's where they really come into the loop. For us, they bring very clear value. It's that network. It's that way to get that message out into the community. Again, this is a process that we're looking to scale and repeat in each of those locations that I mentioned earlier.
So, for anybody that would be interested in traveling to Orlando, or if they're in the Orlando or the Central Florida area, anybody that would be interested in attending, volunteering, what do they need to know?
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, we have not released the press release yet. So the formal press release will come out, should come out this week. And, right now we're talking on January 25th. Once that comes out, that'll have all the information, including their ability to purchase tickets. If they are in the area or want to travel to the area, that is the way to attend the game. For anyone looking to volunteer, really it's quite simple, especially if they're already an active enrolled member, especially an athlete member and they're local or close enough. They can simply reach out at info@PuertoRicoIceHockey.com and, simply reference what they're looking to bring. Volunteers are great. Typically, we're looking for someone that can bring a particular, set of values. Maybe they know someone in the area. Perhaps they want to help provide some meals for the players, or perhaps they want to help, with something like, making sure, ticket sales are going smoothly, or checking tickets as people are coming in, right? Perhaps they want to be involved from more of an entertainment perspective, right? Like think from a music or even live music level. We are looking to have some level of kind of live band at each event. When I say live band, I'm thinking more like drums, right? Again, that kind of heartbeat of the crowd in a sense. So that's how they would reach out. Info at PuertoRicoIceHockey.com.
And then obviously there's a few different factors that go into this between participation, performance on the ice, and, all the other factors with the partners you have down there. But in your mind, what would a success at the Orlando event look like?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, we want everyone involved to feel, coming out of the event, like they really got some, reciprocated value. Again, that first comes to our partners, the Orlando Solar Bears and the Florida Puerto Rican Parade. Being the first event, it's possible that we might not get to the top level of execution. However, if they both leave and they say, well, look, Puerto Rico Ice Hockey Association came in, it was a fun event. We had that activation point with the community. We engaged the community. We got some more fans, right? We got some more attendees on the parade side. That's the first thing, right? I think the second thing is, what do the teams we played think, right? Because those teams we played, as much as we're going to compete, they're also coming into an experience that they've never had the opportunity to experience, playing another national team, some of them. And what are they going to be saying? If they're saying, hey, this is an awesome event, bring us back, right? And there's no guarantees, but if that's the feedback we get, I think that kind of really shows us, what that event really, equaled. And then I think, as a third point, our goal is ultimately to bring, 3,000 people through the doors over the course of 3 days. It's a lofty goal for a first event. There's no guarantee we hit that. However, if we even make a dent or get close to reaching those numbers, and we start to bring in some new individuals, that's still going to be successful, right? Because again, the main thing is, if you think about it, even if it's 100 people in the stands, right? That's 100 people coming to watch a Puerto Rican national team specifically, with a fun environment, right? With that same kind of loud, proud, passion that I mentioned earlier. That's going to be something that, people are going to see online and say, well, I want to be part of that. Why did I miss that event? Right. I think if we get those kind of reactions, and that's ultimately where we land, that's still success. Now, if we get 3,000, then I think, clearly that's success, right?
Mm-hmm. And, you mentioned a few of the other diaspora communities throughout the U.S. of different places where there's a strong Puerto Rican presence. You also have events planned in Chicago and New York City, which we'll touch on a little bit separately for the Fiesta de Hockey. But for the Challenger Series moving forward, you mentioned a possible women's event, and what other cities and possible times are you looking at? Obviously, nothing is set in stone yet, but just any thoughts on that?
Yeah. So, we're looking to integrate Serie de Desafiadores into Fiesta de Hockey. It's going to be already set with that Chicago and New York event. Those are April and June, respectively. We're looking to have the women, really receive their own exclusive spotlight. I think that's the best way to format these kind of extra events. So similar to how we're going down to Orlando, we're looking to bring them into one of those cities and their own exclusive weekend. Now that is still TBD. We've got to really understand, one, how April goes and how that team continues to evolve. Two, is if May is the best, July, August, like what is the best time for that? And then three, which city? We do have some conversations already started, but again, the goal is, Philadelphia, Hartford. Are those other cities that are Boston as well? Are those other cities that aren't already on the schedule? I don't think it's written off for them to come down, for example, to Orlando and have their own exclusive event, especially based on the feedback that we could potentially receive here in February. But that's really what we have teed up now. I think everything else is going to be dictated, on how does February go? How does April go? We'd like to make this something that's pretty solid throughout the calendar year, where there's continuous touch points, right? And what that's going to mean is, we're going to name 25 person rosters for both national teams after April. Maybe there's quite a few players that get the chance to participate in this exhibition series throughout a calendar year, because not everyone's going to be available for every weekend, right? Which I think makes it even more special and still allows us to bring top talent.
Sure. That's a good point. So like you kind of said, maybe depending on where the team is that weekend and what time of the year they're playing, you get a different a look on the ice, different players that are able to participate. And then also you mentioned, when you eventually will have to set your solid national team roster, how do these certain yearly events throughout the year, how do they help you build up towards your ultimate goal of competing nationally and internationally at a high level?
Yeah, really, again, one of the main factors here for Serie de Desafiadores is ultimately elevating competition. So the question becomes, is the next team we're playing the best team we've ever played, right? Which, if you think about it, that's a pretty, bold target, right? Can we level up each time? Which means that really our team has to continuously evolve and level up in terms of skill, in terms of depth, right? Which means not only do we need to find new players, but develop the ones that are already members as well. And right now, our, again, purpose is to represent Puerto Rico at the highest level possible on the international stage. And really, this is the way that we start to kind of climb, that ladder towards ultimately the World Championship, which is really our mission, right? That's the next milestone. We're part of the IIHF. We need to become full members, and we need to participate in the World Championships. There's certainly criteria that, not everyone can kind of control, but we have to prepare regardless. And this is one of those ways that we're preparing towards that. Without playing, for example, let's say we end up with 12 exhibition games, 15 exhibition games in a season. Without playing those games, how prepared will we be when we have that opportunity to enter the world stage? I think less prepared would be the answer. And all that goes back to a kind of, tertiary reason to host the event. We do need to continue to raise funds for the organization, and these activation points are perfect opportunities for us to do so, in which eventually, again, we've got to start subsidizing more cost for athletes. We've got to start subsidizing more cost for staff. We have to grow those kind of travel parties, right, to really support the organization and bring as much professionalism there as possible. And if you think about international travel, like you mentioned with the world stage, that's expensive, right? So this is, again, another activation point for us to start raising those funds, and really was a true catalyst behind the creation of this event type.
And you mentioned kind of climbing the ladder with different competitions throughout the year, getting to that point where, you get better continuously. So are there other national teams from other countries that have sort of had success with that formula that you are now trying to replicate?
I love this question, because this is part of the predicament with our, trying to think of how to say this. If you think about where we're at, right? Even look at our, hemisphere, in a sense. Like you've got US, Canada, you've got Mexico, right? And everyone else is trying to get into that world stage. how can we get to that world championship? How can we compete internationally at that true, official level? And some of the barriers are exactly this. So if you look at Europe, where there's, geographically, like there's a lot of proximity there from nation to nation to nation. There's a lot of opportunities. How they actually format their schedule is they have international breaks. So it makes it even easier because like you could be actively playing pro, you could be actively playing juniors. You guarantee that you're going to have off in particular weekends where you get to go with the national team, right? We don't have that luxury. However, we can replicate some of those opportunities that they have where they, during those international breaks, maybe go to a tournament, a 4-team tournament, a 4-nation tournament, right? 5-nation tournament, and they get some solid competition along the way, right? There's been, for example, European hockey tournament, 4-nation thing. They meet certain times in the year. That's a very high level, very elite, of course. But what does it look like to potentially kind of eventually get to that level, replicate it? What we're doing is taking a path that's more feasible by spreading out those competitions, by going to the competition, right? And creating a structure that makes sense for us to get that number of games, right? I hope that kind of answers the question. I think it's the true answer is no, nobody's really had success with this format, but everybody has been trying to solve for, this predicament. How do you, in our situation, geographically far from the majority of other nations in the IHF, and, in this state where we're trying to kickstart things, how do you accelerate that path of raising competition, right?
Yeah, that definitely answers it. Because like you said, the nation of Puerto Rico is in definitely a bit of a unique situation compared to many other places. Like you said, US and Canada, they're right there. The European nations are all sort of neighbors. So I can definitely see where you're coming from with that. Do you have anything else to add about this? I think my questions are dried up.
No, again, we hope to see as many people as possible, in each of these respective stops. And, this is something that we're looking to grow, and it is, a lead in to a potential event that we'll eventually have to host, an event in which we're able to, activate, an on ice, competition in the home nation. Right. And that's, yet to happen. It's been a long time coming. It's on the horizon. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel there for sure. But again, this is kind of a path towards that even, and something we're super excited about.
Thanks for watching, hockey fans. And once again, remember to follow Puerto Rico Ice Hockey on social media, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and visit PuertoRicoIceHockey.com. Thank you.